In 1999, a construction worker in Ohio injured his back and received a prescription for OxyContin. He took it exactly as his doctor instructed, twice daily, for pain that was real and debilitating. 6 months later, the pain had faded, but he could not stop taking the pills anymore. This was not a failure of willpower or medical oversight or inadequate regulation of controlled substances. It was the predictable outcome of a system designed to behave exactly this way under financial pressure. OxyContin was released in 1996 by Purdue Pharma, a private company owned entirely by the Sackler family. The drug was oxycodone, an opioid painkiller that had existed for decades in immediate-release formulations. Purdue developed a time-release coating that extended the duration to 12 hours instead of 4 hours. Patients would only need 2 doses daily instead of 6, which was positioned as a major breakthrough. The coating was supposed to release the drug, slowly reducing euphoria and lowering the risk of addiction. That claim became the foundation of a marketing strategy that would generate billions in revenue over decades. Purdue trained its sales representatives to tell doctors that OxyContin had an addiction rate below 1%. That statistic came from a single paragraph in a 1980 letter published in a medical journal. The letter reviewed hospitalized patients on short-term opioids, not outpatient prescriptions for chronic pain, over months. Purdue used it anyway to position OxyContin as uniquely safe compared to other opioids on the market. Doctors repeated that claim to patients, and the construction worker believed it because his doctor said so. His injury was legitimate, his prescription was legitimate, and his trust in the system was complete. Here is where the incentive structure begins to reveal itself and explain why the outcome was designed. Purdue paid sales representatives based on the volume of OxyContin prescriptions written in their assigned sales territories. The more prescriptions a doctor wrote, the higher the bonus the sales representative received each quarter. Between 1996 and 2001, Purdue paid over $40 million in bonuses to its sales force nationwide. To put that in scale, the average sales representative earned bonuses of $60,000 annually on top. Sales representatives tracked which doctors prescribed the most and focused their attention on those high-volume physicians. They organized conferences at resorts where doctors were paid to speak about pain management to other physicians. Purdue spent over $200 million marketing OxyContin between 1996 and 2001, more than any competitor. The company funded patient advocacy groups that argued pain was undertreated in America and required aggressive management. All of this created a structure where prescribing OxyContin became normalized, encouraged, and financially rewarded across medicine. The construction worker's doctor was not acting maliciously, he was operating inside a system of aligned incentives. Prescribing OxyContin was faster than alternative treatments, and patients reported immediate relief, which reduced complaints and callbacks. But there was a problem with the time-release mechanism that Purdue knew about early on. Some patients metabolized the drug faster than others, so the 12-hour duration failed for many users. When the drug wore off, early patients experienced withdrawal symptoms that felt identical to worsening pain needing relief. Internal Purdue documents from 1997 show the company knew many patients were experiencing this consistently across demographics. Instead of reformulating the drug, Purdue told sales representatives to encourage doctors to prescribe higher doses per patient. Higher doses meant more pills per prescription, which meant more revenue per patient and higher bonuses quarterly. The construction worker started needing doses closer together because the pain would return suddenly and with intensity. His doctor increased the dosage exactly as Purdue's incentive system encouraged doctors to do for breakthrough pain. By the time he realized dependency, he was taking 80 milligrams twice daily instead of 20 milligrams. He tried to stop once and experienced severe withdrawal, including nausea, sweating, anxiety, and pain worse than before. So he continued taking it because stopping felt impossible. Without medical intervention, his insurance did not cover. This pattern repeated across hundreds of thousands of patients in rural areas, suburbs, and cities nationwide. Between 1996 and 2002, OxyContin generated over $2.8 billion in revenue for Purdue Pharma. The Sackler family, who owned Purdue, entirely extracted over $1 billion in profits during that same period. Purdue's business model required continuous growth in prescription volume to maintain revenue and satisfy ownership expectations for returns. The sales force was incentivized to maximize prescriptions, and doctors were incentivized to minimize patient complaints and revisits. Patients were told the medication was safe and dependency was rare, so they trusted the system completely. Each decision-maker was responding rationally to the immediate incentives they faced within their specific role and constraint. This did not occur because individuals made mistakes, or regulators failed to act, or medical ethics collapsed. It occurred because the structure behaved as designed under the financial pressure it was built to sustain. But the system began showing stress, and the first cracks appeared in communities with rising overdose deaths. In 2000, a doctor in Virginia was arrested for running a pill mill prescribing massive OxyContin quantities. That same year, reports emerged of people crushing OxyContin tablets and snorting or injecting them, bypassing the coating. This delivered the full 12-hour dose, instantly creating euphoria, identical to heroin with pharmaceutical-grade consistency. Purdue knew this was happening because emergency room data showed OxyContin abuse cases rising sharply across states. The company's internal emails from 2001 discussed the abuse problem, but marketing continued without significant changes to strategy. Purdue did not reformulate the drug to prevent tampering until 2010, 14 years after the original release. Here is where the model begins to crack under the weight of its own design. By then, the construction worker had been taking OxyContin for over a decade and switched to illegal sources. His prescription was cut off after new regulations made doctors cautious, but his dependence remained exactly the same. He paid $80 per pill on the black market, which was unsustainable on a construction salary. To put that in human terms, he was spending over $4,000 monthly just to avoid withdrawal. That was more than his rent, more than his car payment, and more than he spent on food. So he switched to heroin, which cost a fraction of the price and produced identical effects. This transition from prescription OxyContin to heroin became one of the most documented pathways in the crisis. A 2014 study found that 80% of new heroin users had started with prescription opioids first. The system created a pipeline: legitimate injury to prescription, to dependence, to illegal pills, to heroin. By 2007, Purdue Pharma and 3 executives pleaded guilty to federal charges of misbranding OxyContin as less addictive. The company paid $600 million in fines, a fraction of the revenue generated during that time. No executives went to prison, and the Sackler family was not charged or held personally liable then. Purdue continued selling OxyContin, and the Sacklers continued extracting profits for another decade after the guilty plea. The company introduced a new formulation in 2010 that was harder to crush, but by then, dependence was widespread. Patients who could no longer abuse the new formulation simply switched to heroin, which was cheaper and more accessible. The reformulation did not reduce overdose deaths, it just shifted the source of the opioid being consumed. Between 1996 and 2018, OxyContin generated over $35 billion in total revenue for Purdue Pharma. During that same period, over 450,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses, many starting with prescriptions. That is equivalent to the entire population of Oakland, California, dying over 2 decades from a single drug. The Sackler family withdrew over $10 billion from Purdue between 2008 and 2018 into offshore trusts. They moved money to holding companies in jurisdictions with strong asset protection laws shielding wealth from future liability. When state attorneys general began investigating Purdue, the family accelerated withdrawals, transferring billions in just 3 years. By the time Purdue filed for bankruptcy in 2019, most of the accessible wealth had already been moved. The Sacklers proposed a settlement of $4.5 billion paid over 9 years in exchange for immunity. The settlement meant the family would pay less than half of what they had extracted while keeping the rest. That settlement was approved in 2021, overturned in 2023, then reinstated again in 2024 after legal challenges. The construction worker from Ohio died in 2015 from a fentanyl overdose after years of heroin use. He was 49 years old and left behind 2 children who were still in high school. His family received no compensation from Purdue or the Sacklers because he transitioned to illegal drugs first. The legal structure classified his death as resulting from illegal drug use, not from the prescription that started it. So his family had no standing in the bankruptcy proceedings and received nothing from the settlement fund. Thousands of families were in the same position, caught between prescription origin and illegal drug classification of death. Purdue maximized revenue by maximizing prescriptions, and sales representatives maximized bonuses by maximizing doctor engagement across territories. Doctors minimized patient complaints by prescribing more medication, and each actor responded rationally to their immediate incentives. The cumulative outcome was hundreds of thousands of deaths and over $10 billion extracted by one family. The fortune was built on a mechanism that made dependence predictable, and the mechanism was protected legally. This pattern repeats whenever financial incentives are embedded into systems designed to manage human vulnerability and medical need. The pharmaceutical industry continues to operate under similar incentive structures where revenue growth depends on prescription volume increases. Sales compensation models still reward prescription volume, and doctors still face time pressure to resolve patient complaints quickly. The regulatory system remains reactive, catching problems years after they emerge, rather than preventing them from scaling initially. The Sackler family secured the wealth offshore, obtained immunity, and avoided criminal prosecution entirely for their role. The public absorbed the cost of the crisis through emergency response healthcare burden and hundreds of thousands of deaths. This is Luxona.